Okay, here we go, take two. And let's see if this works better. So we're going to get the YouTube going here in a second. There goes the YouTube. And let's see if Amazon is okay with me now. All right, it looks like we're good. Okay, so now I just need to do one more thing, everybody. Let me hit go live on Amazon, and I just need to check and make sure that my Amazon stream looks acceptable. And if it does, then we will continue onward here. But it looks like the Amazon stream is live. So what I'm doing now, everybody, and I'm just checking to make sure this is going to look okay. Let's see. Please work, please work. Oh, look at that. It looks great. Okay, so let me hear the sound. All right. I'm just going to listen to the audio here. All right. So what I'm doing now, I'm so happy about this. So we've been having issues with the reliability of my internet connection, just to bring everybody up to speed. So when I do these streams, 80% of the time, everything is fine. But the 20% of the time when it's not, it wreaks havoc. It wreaks havoc on my Amazon stream, and it wreaks havoc on all of you. And it dumps you out. So what we are doing now is streaming through something called Amazon Media Live. It's part of their S3 system. And it's not free, but it's cheaper than like Restream.io or one of these other services, because I can send out just custom RTMP feeds like I'm doing here. And this goes both to YouTube and to Amazon. And what's cool about this is that if my connection drops out, it'll put up a little slate and say, hey, we'll be right back, but it doesn't close the feed. And what's been happening on YouTube and Amazon is that if I drop out for 10 or 15 seconds, for whatever reason, it's been queuing both of these services to like drop me out completely. So now I will stay on, and that will get us through this. So the cost on this is not expensive at all. So I pay about $14 a month to keep it active. So they charge you a penny an hour for the live channel and the input. So it's 2 cents an hour essentially. And then when I'm live, it's essentially like $1.50 an hour. So it's fine. So I think it's going to work. And it's working. Like right now, it's actually working. I can't believe this. I spent all weekend trying to figure it out. So it's good enough. So what's going to happen here is that soon I'm going to be hopefully getting my connection upgraded, because Comcast told me that I am getting a new connection. They're going to bring the Gigabit Pro to my house, and that will solve all of my problems. But until then, I have to do it this way. But this is going to be just fine. And at some point, I'm just going to have to move out of this house, or at least move my office out of this house to a new location. And that might solve it forever. So what are we working on today? Well, today, let me get my other thing up. So I've got two identical keyboards, and I know I'm going to be hitting the wrong keys at the wrong time. So what we're going to be doing today is upgrading my MiSTer to a new version. Well, not necessarily a new version. We're going to upgrade to a new USB board. So we're going to take the whole thing apart, and we're going to have a new case that has to go on it. And we may not get to the whole thing, because I don't have a lot of time today, but we're going to get the main business thing here installed. We got some super chats I want to thank people for. Clean937 Samuel and Matt Green, thank you for your contributions. It is appreciated. And I thought it might be fun just to start off with some new developments on the MiSTer front that I think if you haven't bought a MiSTer yet, this might compel you to get one. So check this out. Yeah, let's just play the game for a minute. We are playing Rondo of Blood, which is a PC Engine CD title that some say is the best version of Castlevania, beyond even the Nintendo one. And I was playing this last night on my MiSTer, on my big OLED TV upstairs, and I must say that this definitely, I think, rivals, or doesn't necessarily rival, but it certainly is a pure next generation Castlevania experience beyond the 8-bit version. And it of course has, you know, CD audio, and the second level has an awesome soundtrack. It's they remastered the original song, and it's all of course Red Book audio and, you know, super awesome 90s goodness here. And this is available now. If you run your updater script on your MiSTer, it just magically delivers itself to your device. There's been a bunch of videos on this already. And they actually improved the core. So it's been tremendously improved quite a bit. Now, if you are watching, let's pause real quick. If you're watching on Amazon, there are a number of components to get your own MiSTer running. The first one is the DE10 Nano Kit, which I have linked on screen right now. This is if you're watching on Amazon. And that is the central core to all of this. And what's neat is that you can get a lot of things working with just the main board. But as we go to upgrade to the BlisSTer, you'll see all the components and how all this stacks together. And I've done videos on assembling this thing and then taking it apart, so you can see exactly what this is all about. What's cool about the MiSTer is that it's really one of the most fun pieces of geeky hardware that I own, because it allows you to do a lot of cool things. And what's unique about the MiSTer, unlike a Raspberry Pi or something, is that it is running with an FPGA. So the people that are working on this open source project have replicated in hardware the logic of the original things that this is replicating. So for example, when I boot up the Mac Plus here, this is not emulating the Mac Plus, but it's simulating its, I forgot to get my hard drive attached here, it's simulating the logic of its 68,000 processor, and it's doing all of the things that the original hardware did through this reprogrammable chip. And you can easily go from hopefully I'll be back here in a second. Okay. Should be back here in 1 second, and I know it happened. Okay, here we go. I am back. So here's what happened just a second ago. See, this is why this is so perfect, right? Because this time it wasn't the network connection, but there's a bug, apparently. This is the second time it's happened this week. There's a bug in the box that I'm using for ingest for the MiSTer. This is my NDI Spark Plus box. And what's happening is that when I switch video modes, it crashes vMix on rare occasions. And I've got to write to them about this because I've discovered a bug. And my lot in life is that if you have a problem, I will find it. And that's exactly what just happened here. So we are back. And the best part is that my new streaming strategy has worked because you didn't lose me, right? So normally if this happened, we would have had to start all over again. You all would have been dumped out. And now we're all back here again. So this is good, actually. As bad as this was, we had a real life problem and I didn't lose the audience, and that's been the goal here. So let me just check and make sure that the Amazon stream is still active, and we'll continue on our project here. Oh no, the Amazon stream ended. What happened? Oh, great. Okay, hang on a second, everybody. We're going to have to rejigger the Amazon stream. So, oh man, this is so frustrating. This might not work as well as I thought. The whole point here was to maintain the Amazon stream, and that didn't happen. So let me just restart the Amazon stream. And I think what they did is they have human viewers who watch this stuff, and they must have saw that I went dark. So let me run this again here. So let's go live, and that should get us back there. Okay. All right. So to answer some questions, no. So you can't put music on that slate. It just leaves it as static, unfortunately. So I've got to write to them again, because now this may not be a good solution if it's just going to create the same problem. So it keeps the YouTube audience on, though. So that was the goal. All right. So what are we doing today? Because we got to get to work here. So what we're going to do is we are going to be upgrading my MiSTer here to a new USB board. And I got in the other day from my friends at BlisBox. This is called the BlisSTer Revision 2. And what this does is it sits inside your MiSTer, and it's a USB hub, essentially. But it also has these two HDMI connectors on it. And I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but there's a device called the BlisBox, and what it lets you do is connect up your old retro game controllers. I'm going to shut my MiSTer down real quick. It lets you hook up your old retro game controllers to your new hardware, and they have something called the 4Play, which is a 4-way box, and then they've got another one that plugs into your mobile phone. And this board integrates here's what it looks like. So it integrates the, let me switch over to it real quick. It integrates the Bliss chip on the board. So you can get a BlisBox essentially without the Bliss. The other thing that it does is it supports a low latency input mode. And what this will do for supported cores is allow you to directly connect to the core inside of the FPGA, which means that you don't have the USB polling interval. So the way the USB port works, from my understanding, just to keep it real simple, is that it's constantly polling the port to see if something is issuing a command. If it doesn't see the command, you got to wait till the next polling opportunity to see if a button push is being executed. So when you have it connected via these low latency connections, when you're in an LLAPI supported core, that will result in lower input latency, which will make a difference if you're on, on something like a RGB or CRT television with an RGB connection. So that is kind of the gist of this. And I'm just going to update the link for the Amazon stream so that you all can find that, and we'll get it working. And Middleman says, I came back on Amazon, but it stopped after you came back on. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. So my guess is that when I go off, because it's just putting up that slate, the bit rate reduces. And I wonder if the bit rate, they must have something triggered there to knock us off the thing. So my theory is that this will be more reliable because generally we won't have that long of a delay if I go down. So typically my internet blips are like 10 or 15 seconds, and usually enough just to create havoc, right? So hopefully this will not be as big of a deal. In case you're wondering what else I've got connected to my MiSTer here, I have a CanaKit Wi-Fi, and this is like $10 on Amazon, and it works great with the MiSTer. I've been very happy with it. And I used to hook up my MiSTer to Ethernet, because that's my preferred way to do everything. But it actually works really well for a very low price. There was no driver or kernel things to do. You just plug it in, and you can then get it on your network. And this has been really useful because a lot of times when you're, on, when you're on your MiSTer, you want to get an update. That new TurboGrafx core came down from the MiSTer update script, so I can just run it no matter where it's plugged in. And my MiSTer kind of follows me around the house because it is a very versatile console. And I've got that arcade cabinet. I plug it into that. I plug it into my TV. I plug it into my computer monitor to make it work like like an old computer might work. So there's a lot of places that this thing goes, and it's nice to have the Wi-Fi on so that I can follow it anywhere. Bear with me, folks. I'm just going to update the Amazon link so that you can all follow along, and then we'll continue onward here. Somebody was asking, I think Matt in the chat was asking about the cost of the Amazon thing. So it's actually more than 2 cents, but the latency, they charge you based on your usage. So when you're idle, it's 2 cents an hour, meaning that when you're just having it sit there waiting for connections. So it ends up being about, like I said, about $14 a month for me. And then when you're actually transmitting, it's about $1.50 an hour or so. But that's fine. If I can maintain my connection until my new fiber optic thing gets here, I'll be fine with that. All right, so I'm going to go grab my screwdrivers, and we're going to take apart my MiSTer. Now, what I have on it right now is the current USB hub. And we're going to replace that, if I can find my screwdriver set. Where did I put it? We're going to replace that with the BlisSTer. And the BlisSTer does pretty much the same thing. So for the most part, it's a USB hub. But they've added, again, that BlisBox functionality to it. So you have more that you can get more of your retro controllers attached. And my goal for today, we probably will not get to the low latency stuff because I've got to test that on my CRT upstairs. And I'm not going to have time, I think, once we get everything set up. But my goal today is to get at a minimum, I want to get my Nintendo controller attached and then also see if I can get my ColecoVision controllers to work with it. That's my goal. And I just got to find my screwdrivers. I knew I had one thing that I forgot to bring out before I started here. And it's difficult because producer Jake is working remotely. And normally I would just say, hey, where did my screwdrivers go? And he would know where they are. So I do not know where I put them. I will find them. Bear with me for 1 second, folks, until I track those. Oh, there they are. OK. So what we have to do first here is disassemble the case. And then we're going to take the old USB hub off and put on the BlisSTer box here. So the first thing we're going to do is disconnect this little pass-through connector. And this came with my last case, the one that's on it now. And I got a new case also from MiSTer add-ons that I will put on later. So what that does here, just so you can see, is that you have to connect the USB host on the DE10 Nano to the USB hub here. So we'll see where that goes. So Sam, no, so the charge is not for Amazon. So the stream to Amazon doesn't cost me anything, but I'm using Amazon's Media Live service, which is their streaming service. And the reason I'm using their streaming service, this is like a Restream.io kind of thing, is they can take my stream and send it to multiple locations. And so I only have to send up a single 2.5 megabit stream, and then they can retransmit that to multiple locations. And it's a lot less expensive than services that do that normally, but it's also a lot harder to set up. So Matt's looking at the Amazon Media Live pricing. Yeah, so here's how you have to look at the pricing. So the way it works is that you have to account for your inbound price. So if you're sending, like what I'm sending right now is 720p video, 2.5 megabits per second. So you want to look for the single channel HD under 10 megabits version. And I think it's like 14 cents an hour on the inbound. And then you got to price out for every one of the outbound streams that you send, you're going to be charged, I think, about 50 cents an hour or something like that, or maybe just under that. So that's how that works. But yeah, it's through AWS, and I think it's going to work out well, because if it can just keep my connection when things are getting a little squirrely, I think that'll be good. And as you know, we stream to Amazon's shopping channel in addition to streaming out to YouTube. So that is the process there. And it's funny, I'd put this hub in here, and I thought, I won't be taking this thing apart for a long time. And then we got some new toys in to play with, so now we've got to take it apart again. I got to find the right screwdriver for these top screws here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, that's the one. So we'll just grab that real quick. By the way, if you are on Amazon, I don't have it listed down below, but this screwdriver set has been awesome. It's like 15 bucks. It's got everything you need right in there. So Matt, you don't want the reserve pricing. So if you are like a super duper streamer, you can reserve, you get a reserved better quality connection, I guess. But that's only if you're doing like 4K at like super high bit rates and stuff. I don't think you need to worry about reserved. So you do the on demand. But just word of caution as you're playing around with this, I learned this the hard way. Word of caution as you're playing around with this thing is that even if you're not streaming and you have a channel set up and an input set up, they charge you for that. So you will incur cost as you're doing this. So for example, when I'm idle, it's 2 cents per hour, or 1 cent per hour for the input and 1 cent per hour for the yeah, so you just have to be aware of that they charge you that way. But if you think about it, if you were subscribed to a service like Restream.io, they would charge you a monthly fee. So you're going to spend about 15 bucks a month for this. So it's a little more expensive than like the low-end Restream feed. But the reason why it's cheaper for me is that I'm doing a custom RTMP out to the Amazon shopping channel, which I'd have to pay like more for on Restream. So that's how that works. Okay. So what is Grapes wants to know, where can we get the BlisSTer? So I think they're sold out at the moment. But I do believe they are available on MiSTer add-ons. And they do have a page on Amazon as well, but I don't think they're selling anything at the moment. Okay, so here is the old USB board here. And now, just as a comparative, you can see what the BlisSTer looks like next to it. It's the same size. It looks really well put together here. And so this is the comparison. So this has got a lot more circuitry on it, partly because they've got the USB controller, but they also have the BlisSTer chips. And that's what detects the controller being inputted. And it's got 2 different modes, remember. So this can go into the low latency mode, and it can also do the regular USB mode, which is what we're going to start with here. And I think what I'm going to do to start is screw this together, and then we'll put the case, we'll unscrew it and put the case back on afterward. Just so it doesn't flop around on the bottom there. We don't want any accidents here. So let me get my other screwdriver out. And we'll go from there. Jonathan says I should stream live more now because I've got a more reliable way to do it. I agree. I should do a little bit more. I do like streaming, especially when the stream works. So that's the tricky part. It's hard, when you have these connections to these residential connections like I have, to get it to work correctly. So we'll see. I've been back and forth, like I said, with Comcast, and hopefully they will have a better solution for me soon. I'm just going to put 2 screws in just to keep it in place, because we're going to end up taking this apart after we test it and put the case on. So MiSTer add-on sent me another case that fits the BlisSTer. So if you have a case now with the USB hub, you have to get another case. Schmeck wants to know, any chance I'm going to sell the USB hub? Yeah, I probably will, actually. If you want, email me. I just want to make sure this new one's going to work. But email me and I can take a look at that for you. All right, so now what we're going to do next is we're going to do the USB. Did I do this backwards? I think I did do this backwards, didn't I? Yes, I did. Okay, hang on a second. So you can get it in one of two ways, and I got it the wrong way. So we're going to flip it around here real quick. And what I probably should do here, actually, while we're working on this, I can give you a little tour of what your MiSTer stack looks like. So on top of my MiSTer right now, let me give you an overhead. This is the I/O board. And underneath it is the DE10 Nano. That is the foundation of your MiSTer device. So and I did a video recently on the DE10 Nano and how it works, so you should definitely check that out. And what I think we need to do here is, so this, I believe, goes like this. Yes. And the reason is that we have to basically plug in that USB connector to go from here to there, because that's how this interconnects. Now the BlisSTer, because it has that low input latency mode, it has another USB output here, but that's serial that I believe connects up to this port up here, and that's how the low latency mode works. So although the board is stacked up on here, there's no connection between the boards beyond those USB connectors. Handheld Obsession has, oh, I forgot to tell you about the RAM board. Yeah, so the other thing that you really need to get, like the I/O board is kind of optional. So what's nice about the I/O board is that it gives you the ability to connect up to a CRT television. So we have, we did that stream with Smoke Monster about 2 or 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now. And we were playing all these MiSTer games on my CRT upstairs that has an RGB input. So that is why you'd want the I/O board, is for that reason. But if you don't have a CRT with RGB, there's not all that much you can do with this board. It does have a Toslink out, so you have optical audio outputs on it. It's got some really cool stuff on there. I love the RGB CRT stuff because it looks amazing. So, you know, a lot of people are like, well, just hook your Nintendo up to your TV. Well, you can, but to make it look the best, you need a really good RGB connection, which requires you to modify your Nintendo to get there. This setup with this connector on here, you can plug it in RGB right out of the gate, and your Nintendo games and all your other 90s and 80s stuff will never look better. It looks amazing on it. And with these low input latency connections, that opens up the door for doing, you know, light guns and that sort of stuff. Although apparently the only light gun that is compatible with the BlisSTer at the moment is the NES core, I believe. And for other cores, you need to get a snack, which is a whole different adapter. So there's a little bit of there's two different low latency input methods. But to be honest with you, my main reason for being interested in the BlisSTer board is just to be able to get compatibility with the BlisSTer cables, which connect over these HDMI things. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. Now, the other thing that's really required on a MiSTer is the SD RAM, which goes right here. And that basically attaches to the DE10 Nano board. And I've got a whole whopping 128 megabytes of RAM on here, but this size will give you the maximum compatibility. Handheld Obsession, thank you very much for your contribution. Caps the Tech Enthusiast guy says, I think you need to run the LL API script once you start using the BlisSTer. You're probably right about that, because you have to switch it into the low latency mode and then load up the low latency cores. Heretic Shall Be Cleansed says, so MiSTer is RGB only and doesn't do composite. That is correct. So it does not do composite on its own, but it does, of course, do HDMI. That's what a lot of people buy it for, is just to get, you know, their classics running with the lowest latency possible in HDMI. But it doesn't, unfortunately, because I was actually trying to do that earlier, and I was unable to do so. But the first thing I want to try is just getting the, you know, those BlisSTer cables working, or Bliss cables working, and then we'll start messing around with some other stuff. We could probably do some input latency tests on my NES controller, you know, like USB versus non with the HDMI here. Although I don't know if we'll see much of a difference on an HDMI television, because you still, or a monitor, because you still have all the other latency factors that come into play there. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we have to interconnect the USB ports on here. And there's two methods or two types of connectors for this. But the one we're going to use right now is just the regular thing with this one, because we're just trying to get the USB working to begin with, and then we'll try the low latency stuff out in a little bit. And I think we're connected here. Let's just make sure. All right, there we go. Now, power is an important consideration. And you will notice that we've gone from having 2 power connectors to 3. So we just got to make sure we put the right power things in the right spot. So the power input for the DE10 Nano board here is on this plug. And then this one has a power in and a power out. So what I'm going to want to do before we do anything, just to be safe, is check and make sure I understand exactly which one is the power input there. So give me 1 second. I'm just going to look something up on my computer here, just to make sure I get the right thing in there, because I don't want to mess it up. Okay, so if I'm looking at it from overhead, power in is here, and power out is here. So I've got to make sure that I connect things properly. So the power input is going to go into this one for the board itself. And the reason why you want to do this is because you're only getting essentially USB power into the MiSTer. So you want it, or to the DE10, so you don't want to overload the power consumption, especially if you're hooking up controllers and that sort of thing. So I've always powered my USB board independently of the DE10 Nano. But there is a pass-through cable, so what you can do is have power go in here and then run the pass-through cable from here to there. But my advice is just hook up a second USB power source. And you can just get, these cables are not that expensive, you can get these barrel connectors here and you're good to go. All right, so we're going to connect, and actually you know what I'm going to do also, because it looks like there's a definite problem with my vMix installation and that NDI box. I'm going to just plug it directly into the monitor and just make sure this is going to work properly. Okay. And the first thing we'll do, of course, is we're just going to try out these BlisSTer cables. So now you may be wondering, what are the BlisSTer cables? Well, these are what the BlisSTer cables look like. Let me give you a cut over here to these. And I've got 2 NES cables and a DB9. And all of these terminate with what looks like an HDMI connector, but this is just the connector they chose to make it all work. And what's cool with the Bliss, the 4-way Bliss player thing that they've got, is you plug the controller in, your old classic controller, and these cables will work with them. And the Bliss will detect it and make it into a USB controller with the lowest possible latency. And then on the MiSTer, of course, you get the added bonus of direct connection to the core, which again we'll do in a little bit. So let's see if all this is going to work. So we're going to do some power here. I always get nervous on the first boot. So we're going to connect power to the DE10, and then we're going to connect power to the BlisSTer. All right. And I haven't turned it on yet. Oh, I need to connect my keyboard back up as well. So let's grab my little keyboard dongle, and we'll plug that into one of these ports here. So now all of these USB ports are USB ports right now. But if you switch it into the low latency input mode, then it becomes a low latency device, as I understand it. All right, so let's get that going. Okay. Any idea about how much the difference between using a BlisSTer or using a BlisBox? I would imagine the differences are minimal on HDMI. I think where you would see a more dramatic difference is on RGB. And I'm sure you can measure that difference to some degree or another. So that's probably, you know, it's probably overkill for most, because your latency is super low on this to begin with. And I've got my NES controller out here. So what we're going to do, this is an original from the old days. And what I'm going to do is, let me check out the diagram again real quick. Player 1 is on the right side. Let's see, it's on the, yeah, so it's on the side that is not power. Okay, so it is on the side. Okay, so we're going to plug it in. So it's on the power in, power out. Let me just make sure I got this in the right orientation here. So power in, power out. Yes, okay. All right, we're good. So the player 1 is on this side. So what we're going to do is we're going to connect this into here. And then we've got this connector here that will work with our NES controller. All right. Okay, so that's connected now. And now I'm going to give you my other camera angle. I'm just going to move all these metal things out of the way so we don't have a catastrophe. And let's see. I'm just going to get my camera angle adjusted here a little bit. Okay. So let's go to camera 2. And I think we're ready. So let's turn it on. And get your capture cards ready in case we have smoke or sparks. Okay? This could be real short. All right, we are powering up. And I have to maybe select the input on the monitor, so let me check that real quick. There we go. Okay, we're up. Perfect. Okay, so we've got this connected. I may have to download something first, though, because like I said, I haven't really followed any directions here, just kind of going with the flow. But I do have my keyboard attached, so it doesn't look like anything is getting detected on this at all. So, oh, I have the wrong keyboard, that's why. Sorry, everybody. Wrong keyboard. But it's not detecting it anyhow, so that's not a good sign. So let's take this out. Oops, take this out real quick. Plug it in here. Now, it could be that you've got to switch it into the other mode. So we may do that here in a second. Yeah, so Balthier, I believe you're correct that the low latency in LLAPI mode is only on, I'm going to just turn this off real quick. It is only on that mode when you have it in, oh, there we go, this wasn't in all the way. Okay, let's try this again. Okay. And we'll see if this works better now. Okay, here we go. Now we're back up. And keyboard's working. Perfect. Okay, so the USB functionality is working. And let's go and see if it detects the controller now. Oh, it does work. Perfect. So right, left, down, up, A, B, and we'll skip that one, skip that one, skip that one, and skip that one, select, and start. Perfect. So now, if we go in here, it doesn't seem to be working right now. Let's go load up an NES game real quick. And I've got to connect up my hard drive of game goodness, and I may have to reboot to get that working. So let's hook up the hard drive real quick. And I'll just load up a game or two here, and we'll see what happens here. So it doesn't seem to be working in the MiSTer menu here, but I think it might be what I did on the setup here. So let me go over to the NES real quick, and we'll load up a game. Okay, so let's define, let me shoot back here, so I'll show you what we're going to do. We're going to define the joystick. So we're going to go to define NES buttons, right? You need to define this. Oh, didn't I do this already? All right, so let's go back to the, the main menu. Okay. So let's go over to the menu again. I must have skipped the, okay, right. Skip that. Right, left, down, up, A, B, skip, 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 select, start, and undefine. Okay, I didn't do that before. Okay, so I think, yeah, now we're good. Okay, so we're good now. So now we'll go back to console. So handheld says, I need to update again. I don't have the Neo Geo CD. I just updated last night. Was that today that they did that? Was it just like a couple hours ago? That's the best part about the MiSTer, is that if you take a break for a week or two from playing around with it, within a day, like there's 12 other things that you can do on there. So it's pretty cool. All right, so let's go over to, and again, we're just making sure that these are working. So we can go from there. So let's go Super Mario Brothers 3. All right, and if I hit the start button, there we go. I have no sound right now, in case you're wondering, because we're having some issues with the input. But yeah, pretty cool. Seems to be working fine. And I don't know what the latency is looking like here, so we can do a comparison when we get the, we have to get the low latency stuff going next. That's the next step. But I just wanted to see if these BlisSTer cables would work. So right now, the BlisSTer is basically communicating through USB. And if you've ever seen the BlisBox, which is a 4-way USB input box, it's basically that built into the board. So we're able to use classic controllers with it, and there you go. Now to use the low latency stuff, we're going to have to download a few things in a little bit, because we have to install special cores, and I think there's a driver that has to get installed as well, or a script, so a couple more things we have to do after the fact, but there you go. Okay, so step one, we are good. Okay, so now I want to see if I can get my Coleco controller to work with it. So let me I'm just going to shut it down, and let's go find my Coleco controller, which, by the way, happens to be on the shelf behind me. I don't know if this one works. I've got two. One of them works and one of them doesn't. So let's see if this works. I've got like a rubber band from 1980 something. This controller has not been used since I was probably in 3rd or 4th grade. So we're talking like 30 years maybe. So we'll see what happens here. All right, so now, and I don't have high hopes. Thought I smelled a little toasty, but no. Okay, I don't have high hopes for this, but let's see. And honestly, this is the reason why I wanted this, because I had a ColecoVision as a kid. So the Coleco was like that was my favorite game console as a kid. I mean, I loved the Nintendo, I loved all the Sega stuff I had, the Genesis, but the ColecoVision, that was it. And what's unique about the ColecoVision for the 80s is that you've got all these buttons on here that are for some of the games. Not many games, so a lot of the games you had to start with this keypad, but there were overlays, and I totally forgot that these existed. I probably have them somewhere. You slip the overlays in the controller pad here, and you can get stuff going. And there's one game in particular that I really liked as a kid called War Games that worked used those numbers there. Now, like I said, I don't know if this controller is my working one or the non-working one, but we'll find out here in a second. So we're going to put this in here, and let's fire it up, see what happens. All right. Okay, so now we're back up, and let's go in and define joystick buttons. Let's see if it detects anything. Yes, this one may not be the working one. Yeah, this one's shot. So, oh, it detects the buttons. Look at that. It detected something. All right, so let me go back here. Let's try this again. D-pad test, press right. So it looks like my pad is shot, but see the buttons here are detecting. Isn't that awesome? All right, so I've got to go find the other one. I bet you if I took this apart, I could probably solder it back together and fix it. So hang on one second. Let me go find my other one, which I think is in back somewhere. I was hoping that the one on the shelf was the one that worked, but it might not be. Well, obviously isn't. It's not back here. Let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna have to I have to dig it up because I don't know where it went if it's not back here. Well, that's a bummer. Well, the good news is it works at least, partially. And we could probably fix it. Here's what I did find, though, if you're curious. Here, check this out. This is my original ColecoVision. Isn't this cool? It's a little dusty, but this was what this came with. And what these controllers would do is they would park themselves. The reason why it was so big was that you could park the controllers in there, and it worked as a holder. And back in the day, parents didn't like this stuff. They probably still don't like this stuff hanging all over the place. So they had to design hardware with like the parents in mind that you could keep everything organized and tucked away. So you would just basically put the controllers back in here, throw it under the TV stand, and then take it back out again when you wanted to use it. So you know what we should do real quick, because I have a few minutes here. Why don't we take apart this controller and see if we can figure out why it isn't working. Wouldn't that be kind of fun? So let's do that real quick. And then perhaps somebody, while we do this, perhaps somebody in the chat room can talk about what I need to do to get the low latency stuff working, because that'll be helpful. Like I said, I don't think we're going to have much of a noticeable difference with the low latency on HDMI connections. We are on a very fast monitor, but I don't think it's going to give us much of a thing there. So, all right. So let's see if we can take this controller apart and see what is inside, or what's causing our issues here. I have a feeling it's going to look pretty nasty in here when we get these screws off. So I do it, like I said, I have another controller. I have no idea where it is, so I don't even want to attempt to try to look for it right now. But we will track it down. It'd be great if there's something like super simple inside that's just causing this not to work, but I doubt that, but we'll see. And this was made in Taiwan, this controller. Now, I got the ColecoVision in 1982, I think was when I got it. And it was light years ahead of the Atari. And Coleco was a Connecticut company. Okay, so I need to run the LL API script and then set the serial mode to LL. Okay, got it. So we'll have to download those cores and then set the script to do that. This thing is nicely stuck together here. So I got all the screws out, but it just is super tight there. Is there another screw somewhere? Oh, there's one more screw. Let's get that one out of here. Thank you, Cooper in North Carolina. It's always good to have people watching me do my stuff here. All right, so let's get this apart here. It's a little dirty. So I think we can get this board off of here. It's actually a pretty simple design. And so this turns this thing in here, and it makes contact on these pads here. So you know what we should do is we should fire it up with it opened up here, and let's see if it'll detect it with the thing off, and we can figure out what's going on. It's probably just some dirt in there. Okay. so let's take a look here. So I'll show you what I'm looking at. Yeah, let's plug this back in. Let's move all these things out of the way here. And let's power it back up again and see what happens. I'm determined to get this controller to work, because this is like, believe it or not, beyond the low latency stuff, like this is what I want to see, what I want to do. I want this controller to work. All right, so we're going to go back over here, and we'll go to define joystick buttons. And I'm just going to skip this part, and we'll go right to here. So right, yeah, so it's not making contact here. So none of these are contacting, which means like there's some disconnect between these contacts. I need to get underneath this, I think, to really figure it out. And I don't know if there's another screw involved or what, but let's power it off so I'm not shorting anything out. Although I guess that's how it works, right? Because the buttons work. And here, let me show everybody this, and you all can look at it and tell me what you see, if anything, that might not be functional here. It's definitely dirty. So let me shoot back to the shot here and wait for the camera to focus if it will. Sometimes I zoom in a little too far. So let me zoom back out just slightly. There we go. So it looks, yeah, you know what, there's, I'm not seeing anything that, unless maybe some of these solder points have come out of whack here. It looks like there's some, yeah, like there's some holes in the solder, although I don't know if that's how it's supposed to look. So why don't you all tell me what you see? But yeah, I think I'm going to maybe resolder this later. I'm not very good at soldering, so we're not going to do it right now. But there you go. So we'll put this controller back together in a little bit and figure it out. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is, maybe I'll hook up my computer for this part, is we have to, and I'm going to file a ticket with my friends at vMix, because this box I've been using continually is causing trouble for me. So we're going to come back to that. We're going to now go and download some stuff. Heretic says, why not get my other controller? You know what? I don't know where the other controller is. So I'm almost positive that the other controller works, except I just don't know where I put it at the moment. What's this one? This one is, oh, here you go. Here's an original Atari controller. Let's try this one out real quick and see if this works. Yeah, that's a nasty, dirty connector there. And this is like, I think, one of my original Atari controllers. Let's try this real quick and see if this works with it. Let's plug it in real quick here. So this connector is a straight up DB9, so you can use like Sega controllers with it, old Atari controllers. All right, so let's plug this in, see if we can get this old Atari controller working. So we'll go into F12 and we'll go to define joystick buttons. So let's go right there. This one works. Left, down, up, A. That's all we got. Okay. All right, so let's go back out of here real quick. And what are we going to play? Well, I think we're going to try out some Atari 2600 real quick on this. And, oh, I don't have my games on here? Shoot. Hang on. Ah, all right, give me a second here. We're gonna solve this problem real quick. Yeah, so I know the Coleco will work with it. It's just a matter of we got to find that controller. All right, so I'm gonna go. Oops, I gotta install an update here. I'm going to connect to my MiSTer. And actually, the MiSTer I got to plug back into my network. So we're going to connect up the Wi-Fi adapter real quick, that CanaKit thing, because I've got to FTP some stuff over the network into my MiSTer to make the rest of this stuff work. So and we have to run some scripts. So we're going to connect that up. And let's fire her back up again here. And we'll get going again. And I'm curious if everybody could tell me how the connection is going for you all. But, I mean, let's see. This was working. Let me remap it here again. Bear with me for 1 second. Oh, it stopped working. Right, left. This was working a second ago. It stopped working. All right, let's unplug it and plug it back in again. Oops. That's a bummer. Well, this controller did work a second ago. Maybe that was its last hurrah. Let's hit escape again here. Let's try this again. D-pad test. Press right. Right, left, down, up. You all saw that working. And now it's like, I'm not working anymore. Let me unplug this and plug it back in again and see if that might resolve it. Yeah, it's down for the count. Okay, try hitting the reset BlisSTer port button. So that is, let's see, where is that? That is, okay, that's the button I just pushed. Okay, so let me push that down again. I'll hit the reset button. Let's see if it comes back. Nothing. Okay, so there's a reset upgrade and there's a power switch. I'm not sure how long I'm supposed to hold it down for. All right, let's power it off, the whole thing again, and see if that might fix it. It looks like it stopped working when I plugged in the Wi-Fi adapter, because after it came back up, it stopped responding to our button pushes. And actually, it doesn't look like the Wi-Fi. Is the Wi-Fi coming back up? Let's take a look. You know what? The Wi-Fi is not working either. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so the Wi-Fi is up, but our joystick is not responding. Let's take a look here. Yeah, so T-Dub says, I took it apart, and the dust that was making it work stopped working. That's probably what happened. I bet you I loosened up some dust here, and that was it. Yeah, this is another one that hasn't been used in decades, so I probably just pushed it into its last hurrah. Well, it was fun for a minute while it actually worked. And this will be the problem when you find all your old game controllers. It's going to it's going to create issues for you. Let's try this again. When in doubt, blow on it. It's probably the worst thing you can do, but all right, let's try this again. Right? Yeah. Let me hit the reset on this real quick. Yeah, it's not working. I guess you can power down the whole board also, which is cool. So that's something to keep in mind. Although I just disabled my Wi-Fi adapter there, didn't I? Come back up. Oh, I just did something to it. Let's see. What did I do? Here we go. Okay, let's go back here. All right, so that's back up. So now let's try it one more time. But I think I probably killed this joystick too. So how about that? We killed 2 classic joysticks in 1 hour. So find joystick buttons, press right. Yeah. Okay. So that's going to do that. All right, so now yes, we do have to get that cable connected so let me go do that real quick. So the next thing, to get the low latency connection to work, because we were just trying out the BlisSTer functionality with USB, we know that it works because we were able to get my NES controller to work without being in low input latency mode. Because that was part of my goal here is to get my old ColecoVision controller working. So that does work. The button worked, but the controller was broken. So when I find the other one, I will let you all know about that. So now in order to get the low latency mode working, what we have to do is we have to connect this cable up to the I/O board. So there's a serial port. Let me go overhead again here. Let's go to camera 3. So there is a serial port on the MiSTer here. And we need to connect, I think it's this one right here, the serial I/O. And this is not a USB port, even though it looks like one. And we have to connect this with this cable to the bottom of this right there. And then when we switch it into the low input latency mode, that will get us going. Okay. Yep, that is a Wi-Fi module. I think I'm going to unplug that. Although we need it initially because, let me ask you all this question then. Am I running a risk here if my hard drive is attached to it as well? Is that a problem? Because if that's the case, we've got to be really careful about what we plug in when we're in this low input latency mode. So I think what I might do is unplug everything to be safe. And the issue we run into is that we can't use the keyboard on here either if we're doing this. So that's going to be a challenge, isn't it? Because you only have one USB connection on this entire board. So we need to be careful about that. Let's also double check, because some folks are saying it may be something wrong with the connector or the board if it failed twice. So let's plug the Nintendo controller back in and see if it works with that. And then we'll go into the low input latency stuff. Plug this and plug this one in. But we know for a fact that Coleco controller is not functional. So that we know doesn't work. But let's just double check here to be certain. And so so there we're good. So this is working fine. Okay. Okay, so, I see. So Matt says the USB ports in the BlisSTer still work as normal when you're in LLP. Okay, so the USB ports are working as they did before. So I'm going to reattach my Wi-Fi dongle then. So let's do that real quick. And then we'll attach my keyboard up again. At least that way we can get at some stuff here. And what we'll do is we'll test the low input latency with the NES controller plugged in. And I think this is definitely up to date because he just sent it to me in full disclosure. So I think he most likely got it updated. We'll find out though, won't we? So let me switch it back on here. And what I'm going to do now is I need to FTP some stuff into my MiSTer. So we need to get some of the cores loaded in. And we have to look for some other stuff. So let me get my desktop capture app loaded up here so you can see what I'm looking at here on my screen. And we'll get this going. And then I've got to be out of Dodge by 5:30 because I got to upload the weekly wrap-up. And you know what, Caps, you are correct. I am running the low input latency thing. So that could be creating some issues with the controller as well. But let's try the low input thing first here and get that going. All right, so let me pull up I'm going to do this one here. Actually, display one. Okay, so let's get this up. And we're going to go to the page on MiSTer add-ons here. So let me switch over. Oops. Sorry, let me get my audio off of that. I'm still learning my new system here, so there's always these little things that I have to adjust before I bring in new sources. Okay, so here is the board, and there's some instructions here. So we need to go to the LLAPI branch. And there's some documentation here too, so we should probably look at that. And I think what I'll do, because we have the NES connected, is we'll grab the NES low latency MiSTer core. So I'm going to grab this one real quick. We'll go to releases, and we'll get the most recent one, which looks to be this one here, 308. Oh, LAPI new release, okay. 7 months ago. So it looks like we need this one. So this one's running a little behind the current one. Oh, 6 months, 2 months, here we go. This is the one we want here. New release, supports paddle controllers, which unfortunately we don't have. That's okay, we'll download this one, download. So grab that one. And then we have to put that onto our MiSTer, so we'll get to that in a second. I just want to look at the documentation real quick also. All right, this looks something that's out of my league here. All right, let's just play it, let's just run with it, see what happens. Okay, so we're gonna load that in, and I think there, like somebody mentioned there was a script also. So if somebody could let me know about that, that would be helpful. All right, so let's go and pull me back up here. I just got to go and find my IP address for my MiSTer locally on the network here, because I have to run my FTP into it. So we're at 217. And let's connect up with that real quick. 192.168.2.217. And oh, come on. You know, I can't have a day where things just work, right? Look at this. Oh, now we're in. Okay, there we go. This computer is like woefully out of date. This is the one that sits on my thing here. Oops, I'm in the wrong thing. We need to go over to Media, and we'll go to that. And I think I'll drop it in the console folder. And we'll just grab this one here and toss it in there. Okay, and now what I'm going to do, looks like the Amazon thing is still working, which is good. I am going to go back to your chat room here so you can tell me what to do. Oh, no need for driver. Okay, just the RBF. That's what we got. Okay. There is an okay, right. There's an update script so if you can grab the stuff yourself, but that's okay because we're just going to test the NES one out right now anyhow. Okay, so now we've got that core installed. What I'm going to do here is go to console, and we'll go to, we should see, there it is, NES LLPI. And let's see what happens. All right, there we go. So does the controller work? Yeah. Now how do I know I'm in the how do I know I'm in the mode? So aspect ratio 4:3. And what I am going to do when I do the review of this is I am going to do something with the light gun, because I think the light gun works on this core but not some of the other ones that are around. If I'm incorrect, let me know about that, but I think that's the case. All right, serial mode. So I want to turn the serial mode on. I think that's what I want to do, right? So let's go serial mode, snack, LL. Okay, there we go. All right, so now we've got it enabled. And I'm guessing I got to reboot the core, right? Let's take a look. So serial mode, LLA, yep, we got that going. Let me just save the settings here. And let's reset. See if it works. And thank you, Rena, for the script. I'm going to grab that, and I will install that later for when I do the full review. So I'm starting to run low on time here. So let's see. All right, so I got it in that mode. And do I need to define the buttons or anything? I don't think I need to, right? Because we are kind of directly attached. So, oh, all right. So the other problem we have is that this core, I don't have my hard drive attached. Hang on a second, folks. I think I need to plug this in. I may have to reboot the MiSTer again. I didn't have my hard drive attached. That's serial mode. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to try do Super Mario again. Okay, no need to define. Oh, see, close the menu. Okay, so let's do menu still using USB. Close the menu and you'll be running. Okay, so let's close the menu real quick. So if I close the menu if I yeah, so now it's not moving when I push it, so I'm assuming that we are in the right mode now. Now let's double check. So we are in LLAPI. Okay, so let me load the game up. And you don't need to map controls here because this is basically wiring itself into the core. So it's not going through the USB controller, if I understand this correctly. So let's have a look. And it's working. Okay, so Matt says, is the red LED? Yes, there is a red LED. Let me give you the overhead real quick. See if you can see this. So let me go hit our camera 3 here. And let's see if I can get it angled up at you. There's a red LED, which I assume means we are in that mode. And there we go. And yes, I'm aware there's a script theta, but I wanted to move quicker here, so we just wanted to grab a core and just get it working. Yeah, it feels pretty good. So the big test will be like, you know, what's the latency looking like, right? But it's working. Feels pretty good to me. Now, granted, on a HDMI monitor, this is going to be you know, harder to really detect the difference. Although I suspect that we'll see a little better performance on a CRT. And I'll go upstairs later and try it with the light gun. That's part of my objective with this, was to get it working with the light gun as well. But it feels pretty good. Not bad. And you know, it's pretty much plug and play. And what I like about this is what I was really excited about, is that it doesn't have to run this way. So, you know, if you just wanted to use, like, for example, like my big thing is trying to get my ColecoVision thing to work. I don't have to futz around with this mode. I can just run it as a USB thing, right? It'll work the same way. Dukra says it doesn't support light guns, although I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think the NES core does now. Let me know if I'm wrong about that. Matt says good practice is to wait a few seconds before pushing buttons on the controller because it needs to detect that. Okay, so I will make sure we wait a little bit on that. Thor says the BlisSTer is not like the snack. And I have to get a snack also, because the snack does work with the light gun for sure. And that works through the same port. So I'm guessing you have to disconnect your BlisSTer cable and plug in the snack for that. But that's cool. All right, so let's grab the script real quick, because we'll see how that runs. So let me go and grab the link to that. Somebody put it in the thing there. Yeah, Rena did before. So let's grab the script real quick. And I'm going to just put it up here. And I think I may have asked already, and I may have missed some people's chats, but let me know how the stream has been for you today, because we're streaming this differently than we've streamed before. All right, so I'm assuming that this is what we want here. And we're going to grab the BlisSTer updater. There's a BlisSTer updater, and there's a so I probably want both of these, right? The BlisSTer updater. This program is, so let's grab the raw of this one. I think you just like right click on this and download it, right? I'll throw it in the downloads folder. Yep. And then we want the low latency updater script as well. And we'll grab that and throw it in there too. And then what we'll do is we'll go over to our FTP app again here. And I've got my downloads. And what we'll do is we'll go to the script folder. And we'll just drop those two scripts in there. Okay, it is complete. So we'll jump back here, and what we'll do is just reboot real quick, and we'll go back to the menu, and we'll run the script, the updater script, and that should get us those Oops. And let's go over to the LL API updater. And this is one of the best things about the MiSTer is that you've got these update scripts, and whenever something new comes out, you just run it. They've got one for arcade stuff and all that good stuff. TechFlow wants to know how the quarantine is going. Well, it's been good. I generally live a quarantined lifestyle to begin with. The big thing that I miss is being with my friends. My daughters miss being with their friends and being at school, so that's been really hard for me. Just because I don't like seeing them sad, so that's been not good. But I'm just grateful that I'm able to spend more time with my family now, so that's been good. But yeah, I'm looking forward to all of this being over with so that we can get back to our lives again. And here are all the different things. And actually, I do have a Genesis controller back here. I'm going to have to redo my whole set now. So let's take a look at the Genesis controller. We'll try to run a Sega Genesis game, shall we? So let me just disconnect this. Now I'm seeing right now that the port is still in the low latency mode. So I'm assuming that if I want to switch back to the USB mode, I got to hit this reset button here. Is that right? Because it's still red. Rena says the updater script also grabs and runs the latest version of the updater script at launch, so you don't need to update the scripts. That's right. So once you put those in once, you're good. All right, so now, yeah, Mike, that's the one problem. I agree that so this kind of sits outside the MiSTer project, these low latency scripts. So that does create some confusion, unfortunately. All right, so let's load this Genesis one. But again, my thing is that I probably will not be using the low latency all that much, but I will most likely be using, oh, it did switch back. Okay, so now it's green again, so it must have switched back on its own. I am going to be using the BlisSTer components to use my real controllers with it. That's been my big, what I've been really interested in. All right, so let me hit escape here. And now, yep, it switched over. So now it's red again. And if I go back to F12, let's load a game up. We'll do a little Sonic the Hedgehog maybe. Let's see if this works. This controller may not be working either. So I got some like dead controllers all over the place. So oh, this does work. Okay. This actually I think is one of my originals that came with my. This works. Actually, this feels really good. Yeah. This feels good. My image is a little blown out there. I apologize for that, but. And it's hard to look at input latency just by watching the screen here, but like I said, I'll measure this properly, or at least as properly as I can do it, a little bit later. But this is feeling good, and it's nice too that all the buttons will work exactly the way they're supposed to. So there's no mapping; you just plug it in and you're good to go. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, feels good. Feels good on HDMI at least. Is there a difference between this and USB? I don't know. Probably on HDMI it's going to be less noticeable. But very neat. Because that's the one thing that I really like about my analog NT Mini is that I can plug in the light gun on that and get pretty much the RGB experience, which is great. So cool, that works. Okay, so now if I were to turn that off, we would get back to the green thing. All right. Yeah, there's a nice power switch on this too. Everyone's talking about that. And was I able to find? Yes, I got MiSTer add-ons sent me a, so that's the next thing I got. I don't have time now to put the case back on, unfortunately, but MiSTer add-ons did send me a case as well for this. So I will be putting it all back together. So when I do the final review, you'll see it in the case. But that'll work pretty good. And then they also sent me, and we're not going to have enough time for all of this, unfortunately, but they also sent me, so this is the case here. Let me just give you my overhead again, camera 3. I'm still learning my new production workflow here. So this is the case, and I'm sending them back my old one so that it can go to a new home afterward. Because the case is different than the one for the USB hub, so I just got to reconstruct that. And then this is, now I think this is, you all tell me what this is. I think this goes with, they sent these two things together. So this is the Gamer Pro, and my understanding is that this is a Bliss device on a little dongle. So I could plug in, you know, this NES thing and get the NES controller to work on any USB device. And then this thing apparently is, I believe they call this the bridge. And I don't believe this is the same thing as a snack. But if it is, let me know, because that might be kind of fun to play around with as well. And so you need this and this with, I believe, a new firmware, and then this stuff works the same way as the BlisSTer board does. So let me know if I'm correct in that assumption. I think I am. But so it's kind of fun. I haven't picked up my old Genesis controller in a long time, and I got to tell you, it's kind of fun to play this again. Let me load up one of the first games. So when I got my Genesis, I got 2 games with it, the one that came with it, and then I bought Space Harrier. And by the way, the Genesis is the one behind me. Like, that's the original one. And so I loved Space Harrier in the arcade, so I bought Space Harrier 2 with my Genesis. That was what I got. And so this was the exact controller that I played this game on when I first got it. I forgot how good this controller feels. It's big. And it's kind of funny too, because typically, remember, like the Xbox got a lot of heat for being so big, the controller being so big in Japan. And it's kind of interesting that they did make such a big controller in Japan for the original Genesis console. And the Genesis only came with 1 controller. That was a big deal at the time, because people were upset that you had to buy another controller to get 2 players for anything. Like I said, I think this one's my original. And this game looked a lot better when I first got it. Because you have to remember, going from like a little NES or a Sega Master System to something that looked as good as this was pretty remarkable. And when he gets killed, like he'll say, "Ah!" and the guy will say, "Get ready." And it was just so clear. The sound was just so much better than what we were used to. So pretty cool. All right. Well, there you go. So it's working. So the BlisSTer is now merged with my MiSTer. And what we will be doing soon, probably next on my production docket for tomorrow, because I've got to get all this junk cleaned off of my table now, I will put this into a case and we'll do a proper review of it so that you all can understand how it works. Because I was not as clear about exactly what this thing did until today. And so there's 2 different modes. You have the low latency mode and you have the USB mode. And again, it's great. So let me show you this. This is why I think this is why I like this. So when I leave here, so let's just like reboot the MiSTer here real quick. All right, so now we're rebooted, and I'm going to go and let's just go into the regular Genesis core. Let's go to the Mega CD core real quick. So now that I've switched into that core, it switched it back to USB. And down, up, A, B, B, C. This controller's a little, a little old here. Okay. So now my Genesis controller is working just fine. So it's running the the non-low latency core, but it works. So we could load up a little Batman, shall we? So we'll load the Batman game, and now the controller, same port, all That it's USB because a green light there versus a red one next to the connector. Oh, so just gives up to its old. Let's see. Hopefully we come back. Let's see. All right, so this is the big test now. That's weird. It's like replaying what I did before, isn't it? Okay, so I think we're back. Let's take a look what's going on here. Now, I think what's happening now is it's clearing out the buffer, which might be why people might be seeing something duplicated. Okay. Okay, there we go. All right, so I think we're back in motion, back in business. All right. All right, so I got a few minutes here. I'm going to just shut everything down, and then I got some straightening up to do. I've got to reassemble my ColecoVision controller. I got a lot of stuff I got to clean up now. All right, so the good news is, so this was good actually. So we had two problems on the stream today. My software crashed completely. We recovered. And then we had my Comcast glitch. And the good news is that we were able to maintain the stream. So that's perfect. Excellent. So I'm happy with that. So that's good. Okay, so let me take a few questions here. So John Moshi says, the stream is maxing CPU on an Intel i5 on Chrome. Does AWS use this stream? I think the codec. So John, are you watching on Amazon or the YouTube one? Let me know. All right. Okay, so now we're back up. Perfect. Okay. So Mr. Walrus says, I missed the install. Actually, this was a very easy install. It just is like the USB board. You don't have to do anything, really. You just get the boards in proximity to each other, and then you just interconnect them with the little interconnection there, and you're good. So yeah, this is good stuff. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there. I'm gonna, you know what I'm going to do after the stream is over is I am going to check the bit rate that it's sending over, because I'm only sending like 2.5 megabits up. So we'll see where it goes. MG4 asks a good question. What mic do you use? I have a Sennheiser lavalier, which is just on my lapel here. This is hooked up to the AVX wireless system that I use. So I usually have a wireless mic, and I use it primarily wireless so I don't trip on it when I get up. so the way everything is set up in this studio, if I get up and move, stuff is going to fall apart. And yeah, I don't have the big mic in front of me. It doesn't sound as good. So it's a small microphone, so you don't get that depth of sound. But I like to have my hands free, and I don't want to have to keep leaning into a microphone, especially if I'm out articulating. So I use a lavalier to just keep everything out of the way. I'm okay with the audio quality out of it. It's pretty good. This is a cardioid mic, so if I turn my head this way, it won't be as loud because it's very directional. But it's directional because I've got an air handler that runs over there. There's like noise in the room, so it isolates pretty nicely there. So that's why I use that one. Thor says, do I have a PWM or a PWM or a BVM? No, I actually have just a TV upstairs. I got this. If you go and look on my channel, Smoke Monster and I did a live stream, and my father was getting rid of his old JVC tube set, and as it turned out, it has a component input on it for RGB. So I bought the cheap cable and plugged it into the MiSTer, and kaboom, I got RGB out of my MiSTer, and it looks awesome. I'm so excited about it. And then it also, that cable, the very same cable, works with my NT Mini, so I plugged that in up there too. So it's great, because I had been collecting all these different consoles just to have them to use on the CRT, and now I don't have to do that anymore. So the only ones I've got to use as actual consoles now are like my 3DO and the Saturn and those things. Um, so that is that. James Clark, have I done the Dream Machine video? Not yet. I will get to that soon. I do want to do that. So there's been so much that's been coming in. It often drives me in those directions. Rena says, have I tried the PC Engine CD games? Yes, actually, we were playing one a little bit earlier, and they run great. Last night I was playing Rondo of whatever, the Castlevania game. Rondo of Blood, is that what they call it? I'm loving it. I am loving it. Never had that here in the US as a kid. And I played it in emulation, pretty good, but it's awesome on the MiSTer. They've done a tremendous job with that. So that's good. MiSTer wants to know, did I get the PCB case? I got just the one that MiSTer Add-ons sells here. So it's the same one I have, just different size for this one. Yeah. Will regular USB work with regular cords? Yes. Yep. It looks like, and in fact, what's great is that the BlisSTer works with it too. So it works with everything. And yeah, I need to get a snack. So I don't think this thing that they sent me is a snack. Let me show you what this looks like. And I can't find a snack anywhere, but I definitely want to get a snack. So let me switch camera views here. And I think this is the bridge, not a snack. And this works with their other adapters. So we'll talk about that in the video. So MG First says the vMix to AWS workflow is pretty good. Yeah, and today we're doing something a little different. So what we did over the weekend was I was streaming from here to a vMix session that I was running on an Amazon cloud server. And that worked actually pretty well. But what I really want to have is exactly what you all just saw a few minutes ago. When my connection went flaky, I wanted a slate to pop up to say, hey, we're having technical difficulties, hang on, we'll be right back. Because normally what would have happened is that the amount of time that we were down for, which was about 15 or 20 seconds, in the past, what would have happened there is that we would have been dropped from YouTube. You would have been ejected. And as you saw from the weekend when I was, or whenever it was, a couple days ago, it created 3 separate streams from that incident. And today, we had the same problem happen where it gets glitchy. And it got a little wacky on your end for a minute, but then it popped the slate up, and then we came back. So this is working pretty well. So what I'm doing now is this is going through Amazon Media Live, which is part of their AWS services. So I'm paying. So far I've been up for an hour and a half. So this is like $2 maybe to do this for this length of time. So not bad. And then I'll be paying a monthly fee essentially for having it set up. And the setup is so involved that you really can't set it up and take it down and set it back up again. So you basically pay 2 cents an hour just to keep it up and running. So that's what I'll be doing until I get my new connection. Hopefully, we'll see what happens. All right. Retro Junkie, can audio? Okay, so it's not a snack. So we got to get a snack. So that'll be another video. We'll make a video about this, and then we'll do a video about the snack. I think that'll be great to be able to do that. Retro Junkie wants to know, can audio be pushed out the 3.5-inch jack for the MiSTer? Yep, it can go out both. In fact, what we did for the Smoke Monster stream is I had audio going to my television analog, and then we were also simulcasting it essentially through HDMI for capture. So it works perfectly. So the network issue screen was really smooth. Yeah, so once I disappear and the stream gets interrupted on this end, it'll pop that up. So it's pretty good. Yes, Chris, you are late. MiSTer says, have I done the Flowbee stream yet? Not yet. Not yet. I'm having a better, not a good hair day, but a better hair day. I was able to sculpt my hair appropriately today, but we have to do it. And here's the killer. So my plan was to do it this week because they were going to open up barbershops and salons on 2 days from now, on the 20th. And they just about 2 hours ago changed their mind, so they're going to be waiting till June. So I got to do the Flowbee. I'm out of options. So that is it. John Mochi, does Chrome OS use hardware acceleration of the browser? I don't think it does. You might be having the issue that I often complain about, which is that the Chrome browser in general has not been keeping, it hasn't been using the hardware acceleration properly. So that has definitely been a long-standing concern of mine. All right, well, I am going to call it quits because I've got to go and upload my weekly wrap-up video. And today's video is all about negative reviews and my thoughts on them. So I think you might find it of interest. Mr. Walrus is looking forward to seeing it if it works better than Wayne's World. I am, yeah, what do they call it? The suck and cut? Was that what they called it? And yeah, we'll see where it goes. Thank you, Mike. Glad you all enjoyed it. David Parker, yes, you are too late, but we will be back again streaming once more. But the good news is I archive all of these. So if you go to Lon.TV/live streams, you will find all of my prior streams, and I will add this one to it just as soon as I finish the stream up here so you can check it out. And yeah, it's good stuff. All right, so I've got a new process I have to go through to shut this down. So I stop it here, and you'll see my my slate come back up to say we're having network problems, and then it'll cut out from there. So good stuff. But yeah, this was fun. I really I love doing this tinkering while you're all watching because it's helpful to me because I can get questions answered really quickly, and you all are just fountains of knowledge about things that I know nothing about. So it's great to get that feedback in real time. Like even when I was taking apart the controller, I missed a screw, and somebody saw that I missed a screw. It's great. So it's really helpful. Oh, I want to thank a couple folks here, Clean937 Samuel, Matt Green, and Handheld Obsession for your super chats. We'll give you a shout out next week on the wrap up. I appreciate everyone's support of the channel and my tinkering. And yeah, that's it. So we'll have a video coming up soon. I'm going to get all of this put back into a case. And then from there, we'll do kind of an overview as to how the BlisSTer board works. And then I'll talk about some of the things that I've added to my MiSTer recently, namely the additional Wi-Fi. I got the Wi-Fi dongle on here now, which has been a real big help, actually. So that should be kind of fun. All right, so I am going to call it quits for now. Chris, sorry you had a root canal. Ooh, that's an awful thing to get. So rest up, and hopefully your mouth will be happy in a couple of days, and we'll go from there. Okay. Thanks, everybody. I will see you all soon, and my little technical difficulties thing will pop up, and then the stream will disappear, and I thank you all for tuning in.